But tonight's all about leadership, and what that means is by you being in this room, you're a leader. So give yourself a big round of applause. And because you're here for leadership training, is it okay if I have a leadership conversation here today? Because we're going to have a conversation tonight that isn't really a normal conversation for a brand new IBO. So for those of you that are new, that are here tonight, we're going to accelerate your learning curve here, and we're going to get into some leadership topics. I've been doing this business now for 16 years, and I want to pour some information into you here tonight. And I believe that stories are the best way to give information. Who would agree with that? Yeah. You know, we all can learn by stories of other people's experiences. And so I want to share some stories of some things that I've learned, some things that I've implemented, and some amazing people that Melissa and I have met over the course of the last 15 months. And I want to train you through their stories, but I want to also train you through principles that Patrick and Mike and the leadership team here has taught Melissa and I for the last 16 years. So if you're ready, say I'm ready.
Ready.
Awesome. So first off, if you're taking notes, there's a few things that I want you to write down prior to me drawing out some information for you here tonight. The first thing that I want you to write down is every day I'm 1 rep away from momentum. Every day I'm 1 rep away from momentum. And you know who that first rep is? Yourself. It's the man or the woman in the mirror. See, Mike taught me years ago that the only way you can truly influence another person is by your own example. And so many people spend their time waiting for other people to make it happen instead of just deciding to make it happen. You know, Cody talked about today, 2 weeks ago, he made a decision. He decided. Decide means cut off the alternative. So you've got to go out and make that decision. You know, a couple other things that I want you to write down is if your team thinks you need them, you can't lead them. And I'm going to bring all this back full circle here as we go through this here tonight. But if your team thinks you need them, you can't lead them. If your team knows that you're going senior vice president with or without them, they will respect you, they'll listen to your coaching, and they'll want your attention as opposed to you begging for their attention. How many of us sometimes find ourselves having our team, you know, or trying to beg our team for their attention? That's because they think you need them. But if they don't think that you need them, all of a sudden you can lead them because they see where you're going with or without them. And people want to follow people. People want to follow people with vision. People want to follow people with a purpose. People want to follow people that are going somewhere. So tonight, you got to write down, I'm going to the top. And the first person you got to convince of that is yourself. See, you know, so much of success is a transfer of belief, but the first big transfer that needs to be made is that needs to be a deposit into yourself. And so that's something that's so big when it comes to team building. You know, the other thing you want to write down is drive a leg. And that's going to be a big conversation we're going to have here is drive a leg. You know, my mentor taught me, Jeff, you want to find a leader, you got to drive a leg at least 20 levels deep. Where do leaders come in? 20 levels deep. So write down drive a leg and write down 20 levels deep. The other thing I want you to write down is the bottom of the leg. I'm going to ask you some questions here in this training, and the answer a lot of times is going to be at the bottom of the leg. So let's try this right now. What am I saying here? Bottom of the leg. See, you'll see what that means in a minute. And a few other things is it only takes one match to light a fire. It only takes one match to light a fire. And where do you want to light the fire? What's the answer? Bottom. The bottom of the leg. And when you light the fire at the bottom, you can burn it all the way up. So, you know, let's have a conversation here. And, you know, about 15 months ago, Pat and Mike were having a coaching conversation with Melissa and I. And, you know, here's what they said. They said, listen, you know, it's time for you guys to start a new group. You know, the only way you can influence another person, like I talked about before, is by what? Your own, no, not the bottom of the leg, but that too. It's by your own example, which is the bottom of the leg. We'll get into that. But he said it's time for you to, you know, go out and start a new leg. And it's time for you to set an example for your team. And Mike Mazer, I heard him say, he writes down in his journal almost every day, I attract people to me effortlessly. I attract people to me effortlessly. And I started writing down, I attract people to me effortlessly. And true story, less than 2 weeks after writing that down every day, I get a Facebook message one day from a gentleman that says, I was a victim of identity theft. I'm looking for identity theft protection. I'm also looking for home security. I built a network marketing company with called the People's Network, and I used to work with Darren Hardy and Jim Rohn. I'd love to get in touch with you. And I stared at the message for a while. I'm like, is this even real? And then I remembered, I attract people to me effortlessly. And I said, well, let's jump on a Zoom meeting. And see, that day I met Mark Kent for the first time. And we got on a Zoom meeting. And, Mark, got started. He signed himself up for INDSEAL. He signed himself up for Vivid. And he hit CQ day one. And then one of the most important questions to ask people in network marketing is, who do you know? So write down, who do you know? See, so I asked Mark, great, congratulations, you hit your first promotion. Who do you know? And when we ask people, who do you know, we need to make sure they have one of all these hundreds of Zoom meetings booked that are booked in this room here tonight, right? That first Zoom meeting is so important. So what did we schedule for Mark? A Zoom meeting. So Mark got started directly underneath, Melissa and I, and, we had Mark have a Zoom meeting. And at Mark's Zoom meeting, we met his sister Laura. And Laura got started, and we said, who do you know? And then we had another Zoom meeting a few days later, and at that Zoom meeting, there's a woman there's a thing that just says iPhone. One of those bags over the head on Zoom. Those of you that everybody remember that, right? So you couldn't see the person, so it's like, I'm talking to her, I was like, can you turn on your camera? Can I get to see? So she's like, are you ready for this? I'm like, oh God, right? I was like, sure, I'm ready, right? So she turns on her camera, she's in Tahiti, at a pool, drinking a pina colada on a Zoom meeting. Sign me up. I was like, all right, you're in. So we signed up Michelle. And Michelle today is a regional coordinator in ACN. Well, we asked her, who do you know? So she has a Zoom meeting, and underneath Michelle, we brought Sean Smith into the business. So Sean gets started into the business, and today Sean is a regional coordinator. And Sean, we asked him, who do you know? And he had a meeting, and he signed up with a woman in Minnesota. I actually don't remember her name right now, but we're just going to call her Minnesota. And we asked her, who do you know? And all of a sudden, the lag started to kind of come to a halt for a little bit. Has anybody ever had that happen? Yeah. And when you're building a lag, if a lag comes to a halt, you got a person to recruit, and where does your person recruit go? The bottom of the lag. So I had a gentleman that I knew from years before. We went on a whitewater rafting trip 11 years prior. See, people think with recruiting it's about like, who's your 5 best friends and call them. I got in touch with somebody that I knew from a whitewater rafting trip, with a former girlfriend of mine, literally 11 years before, and him and I kept in touch a little bit on social media. His name is Skylar. So Skylar gets started. So Skylar went in the bottom of the leg. And sometimes you find gold, and sometimes you find foosgold. Okay? Sometimes you think that the person is going to be the one, where that person might just lead you to one. Now, Skylar's an awesome guy. I'm not saying anything about him personally, but on an ACN standpoint, he was somebody that had all the tools. I remember he got on leadership class 1 week in ACN. We had him do the close, and everybody's like, wow, that guy's going to be a star. Some people get caught up in that, and they're like, okay, well, Mark and these guys, they're just going to work with Skylar, and now I can go start another lag. But where do you want to focus? The bottom of the lag. So what did I say to him? Who do you know? And we helped him have a Zoom meeting and another Zoom meeting. And through that, we met Josh Shea, who today is a regional director in ACN. And Skylar never had another meeting after the meeting that Josh got started. He had 2 meetings ever. But one of those 2 meetings led to Josh, who today is a regional director in ACN. Now, does everybody see how important it was that Skylar had that second meeting? And, Josh got started, and guess what we asked him? Who do you know? And he had a meeting, and on his meeting, we met his mom, Lori. And, Lori got, so Josh, RD here, and, we met Lori, and, Lori got started, and Lori's in RD, and guess what we asked her? Who do you know? And we kept having meetings, and we kept having meetings, and, underneath Lori, we signed up Brittany. And underneath Brittany, we signed up Jordan. And underneath Jordan, we signed up Carissa. And Carissa was actually a personal recruit of mine, but guess where she went? The bottom of the lag. And guess what we asked her? Who do you know? And then Carissa signed up Edmund. And Edmund signed up Jose Rosario. And Jose Rosario, guess what we asked him? Who do you know? So he signed up somebody else. They never did anything but have one meeting, so I don't remember his name. Oh, Don. So Don, got started, and, all of a sudden, things started to come to a halt again. But guess who was always in phase one? Myself. So recruited a brand new person, guess where they went? Bottom of the lag. And that, person was Jeff Byrne. Met him on Clubhouse. So Jeff got started, guess what we said? Who do you know? So he had a meeting, and we signed up his mom, Ruby. And guess what we asked her? Who do you know? So she got started, and she led us to Kathy. And Kathy got started and had a meeting, and Kathy led us to Marco. Now, how many of us at this point before I ripped this page would have been like, oh, you know what,
Jeff, go next to it. Yeah.
Right next to it.
My wife does not like wasting paper. What about the paper in my wallet? Oh, that's right, you like the credit card. Take that. So underneath Marco, we found Bruno. And guess what we asked Bruno? What do you know? And we found this guy, Patrick, who was a big property manager. Most people would say, oh, this guy's the one. He's got 1,000 units. He's going to be the star. But guess what I said? We got to keep going. We got to keep digging, because we're digging and we're digging and we're digging for gold. And here's what I know. When you light the fire from the bottom, it burns it all the way up. And now all the other people that are leaders above all of a sudden see what's happening below. They get excited. They say, I got to put more people in front of this, because if I don't, I'm going to miss money. I'm going to miss bonuses. I got a lag that's driving. I got to go out and talk to more people. See, when your team thinks you need them, you can't lead them. But when your team sees that you're doing it with or without them, they get motivated by your own example. And then Lori had another meeting, and she brought in JJ. And JJ's a regional director. Where's JJ Helen at? Let's give this guy a big round of applause. And all of a sudden, people started building other lags, but guess where I was focused? The bottom of the lag. And then I moved to Texas. And I got here in Texas, and a week later, I went to a networking event at the bank, and the first hand that I shake is a gentleman by the name of Mark Washington. And Mark Washington, I say, how you doing? What do you do for a living? He goes, I'm a network marketing junkie. I said, man, I've been, doing this for 16 years, and I've never had anybody tell me that's what they did for a living. He's like, how about you? What do you do for a living? I go, well, I just moved to Texas to work with one of the top people in the history of network marketing, Mr. Mike Mazer. Maybe you might want to come over to his house and meet him. I'd like to do that. So Mark came over to Mike's house, and we filled out his application that day, and and the lag at that point was kind of starting to just it just come to a little bit of a halt. So guess where Mark went? Bottom of the lag. And all of a sudden, Mark got started. And guess what I asked Mark? Who do you know? Now, Mark, was recognized today as one of the top 10 regional directors in the entire Rockstar team. I think number 21, I believe, in all of North America. So regional director, Mark Washington. But I said, who do you know? And he introduced me to Lance Taylor, who's a regional director. And I said, who do you know? And he introduced me to Andy Tuttle, who's a mortgage guy. And then Mark, Lance, and Andy and I were in a networking group. And who joins our networking group? Cody Thompson. And so Cody gets started right here. And Cody gets started in the business. Cody, regional coordinator, about to become a regional director. And guess what we said to him? Who do you know? So we had meetings, and we had meetings, and we met Jock. We met Jock Bronquist. And then we started having live events again for the first time in 2 years. And there was an event in California, and we said, we're going to California. And Mark, Cody, and Jock, and Melissa and I, and some other great people, we went to California to the event. See, big decisions are made at big events. And Jock went to that event and all of a sudden had a confidence in himself that he never had before. And he said, I'm going to bring this to my real estate mentor. And so he calls his real estate mentor, and then he calls me and says he would like to meet you. So we go out, we do a presentation, and he brings on a guy by the name of JD. And so JD, guess what we asked him?
Who do you know?
Who do you know? So JD brought in a guy by the name of Trey. And guess what we asked him?
Who do you know?
Who do you know? And Trey led us to a guy named Tom. And Tom got started, and guess what we asked him? Who do you know? And Tom never even did a Zoom meeting, but he three-way group text messaged me with two people. And one of them, the name was Sue. Her name is Sue. See, all I needed was an introduction. I needed to make sure he led me to at least somebody. Is anybody getting anything out of this? And Sue got started the business, and she went to the first Emerge event in Dallas. And she, caught some of the vision of ACN, got excited, and she introduced us to her friend Teresa, and Teresa got started. Guess what we asked her? Who do you know? And Teresa had a meeting, and at Teresa's meeting, she signed up another loan officer by the name of Mike. And Mike got started, and guess what we asked him? Who do you know? And on Mike's meeting, the only Zoom meeting that Mike ever had, but understand how valuable it is to have every person that gets started in your team have a meeting. At Mike's meeting, one of his two guests that he ever introduced to ACN was Randall Zamora. Wow. And on my 42nd level, Melissa and I's 42nd level, lands Randall Zamora. And Randall, by the way, as of today's update, was 60 points away from RD. He was saying earlier on that, he was committed to making it happen this weekend. I know he's literally just points away. Maybe not even at this point. I know he's committed to make it happen this weekend. But guess what we asked Randall? Who do you know? And, see, it doesn't stop there. Where do you want to keep building? The bottom of the left. And I got it. Don't worry. So Randall seems to associate with a lot of women. And they say behind every good man is what? A good woman, right? Or even better woman in my case, yes, honey, an even better woman. and Randall, what we found is behind every Randall is a great team of women. See, Randall gets started and he has a meeting and he introduces his friend LaShawn. And Randall, regional coordinator. LaShawn, one of the top number 11 regional coordinator in all of ACN. And guess what we asked LaShawn? Who do you know? And LaShawn introduced us to Paula, who got promoted today to regional coordinator. Congratulations, Paula. And then Randall had another meeting, because you always want to go back to people like, all right, great, this is happening below you. Let's schedule another meeting. Let's schedule another Zoom. And Randall schedules another Zoom, and he introduces us to Joanne. Hi, Joanne. And Joanne got started, on the spot, and she said, I'm going to Bahamas for a leadership retreat, and I got to wait until I come back to have a meeting. And what did I say to you, Joanne?
Is there somebody there you can talk to?
Isn't there somebody we can introduce before you go to your trip? Even if it's a soft launch. We'll have your grand opening when you get back from the Bahamas. Let's have a soft opening before you leave. So Joanne has her soft opening, and guess who shows up at her soft opening? Natalie. Behind every man, a good man is a great team of women, right? So regional coordinator. Natalie has a bunch of people here this weekend. Paula has a bunch of people here, this weekend. But does everybody see what's happening here? We have Mr. Mark. Mark has this tonight. Mark's going to cross 7,000 customer points in his team. So who would agree Mark's a little motivated to go regional director? But when your team thinks you need them, what? You can't lead them. But who agree? Mark realizes this is happening at this point with or without you. Would you agree with that? Mark last month, he's like, my billing volume went up by 10 grand this month. This is exciting, right? I'm like, bro, that's going to keep happening. It's going to double and triple and quadruple those numbers, right? And so what did Mark do? Mark flew to Dallas 10 days before the event because he's hungry based on what's happening here. And he just started going to networking events. And today he signed up somebody that was a total stranger 2 days ago that he met at a networking event that's coming to the convention tomorrow and registered a guest to come with him. Why? The bottom of the lag. See, what you'll find is as you build the lag deep, you're gonna find leaders. And if you light the fire from the bottom, it's gonna burn up. And the right people between you and those people are gonna be your Cody Thompsons. Are you gonna be your Mark Washams? Are you gonna be your Lori and Josh Shays? Are gonna be these leaders that all of a sudden say, wow, it's time for me to make it happen like Mark. And you know, guys, this is what we call taprooting. But here's the biggest mistake people make in this business when they think that they're a leader. See, I actually, my wife and I do not like the title of ACN's second position, Executive Team Leader. And here's why we don't like that title. Because people hit that second position and they think they've arrived. They think that they're a manager. And it's about telling people what to do. It's not about telling people what to do. In this business, it's about showing people what to do. Because the only way you can influence another person is what? By your own example. And here's what most people do in network marketing. Most people, here's Bob. Bob signs up Sue. Sue signs up Dave. And Bob says, Sue, go work with Dave and mentor Dave. I'm going to go sign up somebody else. Here's what we call that person, an amateur. Here's what we call this. Network Marketing 101. So I hope everybody got something out of this here tonight. Remember, every day you're one rep away from momentum. And who does momentum start with? It starts with you. So quit waiting for somebody else to go out and make it happen. You be the person that makes it happen. Take some amazing notes this weekend. It ain't too late to get people to come tomorrow, by the way, too. And if you got people in other markets, it ain't too late to go out and get them to go out and register for that streaming event too, because it only takes one match to light the fire. So guys, with that being said, I'd like to bring back up to the front of the room the #1 Senior Vice President globally in ACN, Circle of Champion member, top influencer, Mr. Mike Mays, everybody.